Hello, this is David again from dakinane.com, bringing you another free learning tutorial. In this session we're going to be looking at Google Slides. So once again I've started in my Google Drive. I'm going to click on New and I'm going to make a Google Slide. And here's my Google Slide. And Google has worked very hard to make the layout as similar and as simple as the other views that we've seen in the previous Google Docs tutorials. So again, you'll see a very simplified toolbar along the top here, the same sort of options on offer for the user. But the first thing we're going to do is actually change the layout. This default setup here, we can change this. So if we right click on here, we can come down and we can apply the layout. Personally, I prefer a blank background. So I've changed the background, and I recommend also setting a theme for the kind of slides that you're going to use. That's a personal preference, and I'll show you how I do that in a moment. So what I do now is I then change the background and I use this blue color. That's my personal preference. Click done, and then I add other things to that, and I can show you in a moment. So that's the basic layout. What I like to try and do is I like to try and set up my template for my slide straight away, and then I duplicate that. So the first thing I want to do is I then add a text box, and I generally add 2 text boxes. So I'm just going to click on here, and the first thing I do is I choose my font. So just like in Google Docs, you can choose your fonts that you use. I like to use Hammersmith 1. It's very important to have high contrast, so I always use a white font. So on here, and this is for a heading, so I make it about 18 point, and I like to center it. So just to label this, and then I move it around, and if you see there, can you see the red line coming up? That means this block is now centered on the slide. So I put this here, this is a title block, and then I do the same thing again for a text block. So, and again, I like to highlight that. I like to use this Hammersmith 1, that's my preference, and I make it white as well, but I make it smaller so that's nice and easy to see. So now I've got this basic format for my slides, and so now I can duplicate that, and so I can simply right click on here and I can duplicate the slide, or you can use Command D or Control D depending whether you're a Mac or a PC. So I'm going to do Command D and I'm duplicating, so I've duplicated all of those slides for me. So I've now got a whole bunch of slides ready for me to use that are going to be using the same look and feel all the way through. So let's come back to this first slide here. Let's look at how we can add images to a Google slide. We can come over to here, we click on here, add an image. We can go from Drive like we've done before in the Google Docs tutorials. We can search the web like we've done before from Google Docs tutorials, or we can upload from a computer. So those have all been covered. What I didn't cover in the Google Docs tutorial is this little option down here called Explore in the bottom right hand corner. If we click on that, what Google does is it allows us to look at this, and we can, let's type in something like this. Let's type in Auckland. Now it allows us to search for information, it allows us to search for images, it allows us to search our drive. So by just putting in some keywords here, so let's put in something else. Let's put this in here. There we go. And so here we've got some examples of pictures from Turi Matangi. So here's a Tieki. So I click on this. I selected it. I can click on Insert, and this image will be put into my document. So I can rescale it, which is a good thing to do. I can move it around, and then obviously I can do a text block. So using the insert option through here will give you some images, which is fine, and then using the explore option down here in the bottom right gives you another way to either add text or explore content from your drive. So let's look at this title block. This is pretty dull. What other options have we got? Let's just put this down here. What we can also do is come to insert, and we can insert word art. We can put our text in here. So let's look at this. Let's use the word title. We can choose the font. So we can use impact if we wanted to. So if we change this, so I was going to stick with Hammersmith 1, that's what I chose. Then obviously we can do all of the formatting that we want to do with this. So we could make it, let's make it green. We can change the line colors on this, make it 4 points. We could make it, I'm going to show some really poor choices here in terms of color choices. But can you see here that we can now use word art to actually make something with more emphasis. Now just a note on these handles here, any object you see with a little dot on the top means that we can rotate that, and you can see as we rotate round, you can see it gives us, Google gives us the angle that we're tilting at, so we can be fairly accurate at how we organize this. Again, with all of these features, use them pretty evenly. Okay, so let's have a look at something else here. Something else we can do here. We can look at this. If we look at this image here, you think this is quite cool. I want to crop this. What we can do now is we can crop up here. Now we can crop ordinarily. So if we just click on crop, I can just crop this picture as I want to, actually in here. So I could just decide to crop this and move it around. I don't really like that. But also, if we click up here, you can see there are shapes I can crop by using. Let's using something quite dramatic. Let's use this arrow here. There we go. And so the bird's inside the arrow. I'm happy with that. And click return. And so now I've got the bird inside the Tieki here inside an arrow shape, which is quite an interesting tool for us to look at. And we can use these options here to really use our visual literacy to kind of make that quite an interesting view of the picture. There. We can do other things. We can add borders around the outside. Let's put a 4-point border so you can see what I'm doing. We can change the color of the border, so let's just make it custom. We can change the shape, shade, go slide up to here. Let's just choose a color. Click OK. There we go. So once we've done that, that's all good. Now the last thing I want to show you in this tutorial here is how to add shapes. So up over here we can just add shapes themselves. Let's look at any of these shapes over here. We can use callouts, which are quite cool. We can look at here, we can look at this and just draw the shape. And now we've got this text box. We can move this around. So we can make the bird appear to be saying something. Just moving move this yellow handle there, and then we can put text in here, and we can, of course, we can change the color of this, and again, really poor color choices, but you get to see the idea of how this works. And so this is a very simple overview of Google Slides. Just like PowerPoint, we can animate. So if we come here to insert, come down here, click on animation, we can select any particular block here. So let's click on this, select it. We want to fade in, not necessarily want to do that. We want it to fly in from right. Click play. There we go. That's my animation going on. So click on this, click on here, we could add animation. We might just have that appear. Just have that appear on click play. So you can see now, click, in comes the bird, click, there, in comes the box. And so all the features that you want to make simple presentations online with Google Slides is there for you to do. Obviously you need to save your work, so let's click on this. Done, and it's saved in work files, as you can see.